have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, and I'm so fatoutzed that I didn't even put a tie on today.
You're just doing a Steve Bannon imitation.
Oh, my God.
See, it's unconscious now. I'm Ann Northrup.
Look, as you know, it was a close election, but a disaster for LGBT rights, the environment, women's rights, civil rights, and much, much more.
We'll go over what Trump is proposing, including people in the White House determined to dismantle progressive gains of the last 50 years.
Maybe the last 500. We will talk about how to resist and how to take care of ourselves in this crisis.
In other news, states are once again readying anti-LGBT bills for 2017, and we'll talk about how to defeat them.
And in this Congress that we're still in, they're still trying to turn back an amendment to the Defense Authorization Act, that allows anti-LGBT discrimination by federally funded religious organizations.
Attacks, physical attacks against LGBT people, people of color, women, religious minorities are up across the country.
Physical attacks and harassment and vandalism and all those things. But a Baptist church in Dallas voted for full inclusion of LGBT people.
A setback for marriage rights in Mexico in their parliament.
And we're going to get back to reviewing some shows, including the revival of Falsettos on Broadway and Homos, or Everyone in America. That's the title of the show.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, speaking of titles, I remain struck by the title of the Trump theme song. You can't always get what you want. I have two explanations for why he used that for all these months. One, he likes the Rolling Stones. Two, he's really focusing on the end of that phrase, which is, but you get what you need, in his point of view.
Well, looks like they're getting almost everything they need. I went to the big anti-Trump demonstration in New York this past weekend, mainly focused on immigrant rights who need to be protected. 15,000 people marching from the Trump Hotel to the Trump Tower. And there was a guy who had a sign there that said it all, if we can put that up. It said, his sign simply said, too much to, there it is, too much to write. And that says it all. There are so many things that are on the table right now that are about to be destroyed that they don't all fit on a sign. And you know, I have to acknowledge, as I did on Facebook, I had chest pains the past week and finally went to the hospital. My heart is okay. That was a relief. But it seems everybody is under some form of stress, depression, except Trump voters.
I think it was a muscle pull.
Oh, maybe.
I want to start as an organizing principle here with the Leslie Stahl 60 Minutes interview of Trump and the Trump family, because what came out of that was everybody going, oh, he says he's fine with marriage equity at the Supreme.
It's settled.
It's settled, and I'm fine with that, he said.
Yeah.
Well, Leslie Stahl afterwards said, oh, he was so reasonable. I was so encouraged.
Well, I mean, she tried to do a follow-up and say, well, but what about the Supreme Court and all this kind of stuff, as she did on abortion, where... And don't forget, on abortion, he said, I do want to get rid of Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
You're just going to have to go to another state if you want to get an abortion. It'll be left up to the states. But if those same justices who will overturn Roe v. Wade will overturn the marriage decisions.
And those who are saying it'll be tough are wrong. Don't forget, we overturned Bowers v. Hardwick with the Lawrence case 17 years later to get rid of the sodomy laws.
Exactly.
But here's what she didn't ask about. First of all, she didn't clarify the marriage thing and did not point out that, in fact, he has said he's against same-sex marriage.
It was wrongly decided.
Yes, and that he would be, he claims he's fine with marriage equality and that he has spoken up for LGBT people during the campaign.
Only not to be thrown off buildings by ISIS. That is the only thing that he has spoken up for.
But
Thank you.
In his mind, that's speaking up for us. But he has said repeatedly that he supports traditional marriage, which is evidently, you know, married 3 times and cheating on each of your wives. But he would support the overturning of same-sex marriage at the Supreme Court. He was not asked about non-discrimination laws, about the executive orders from Obama that he can overturn with the stroke of a pen.
And says he will.
That force things like federal contractors not to discriminate, the regulations that require hospitals to treat people without discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity.
Discrimination against LGBT people around the world, which the State Department has stood for and is not going to under Rudy Giuliani if he gets the job.
The arguments by the Justice Department in court all over the country supporting the rights of transgender people to the use of the proper bathroom or to interpretations of sex discrimination laws to include gender identity and sexual orientation.
If I were Donald Trump right now, I'd say, you're speaking too fast for me. I don't understand.
Tough.
I don't understand all these things. We're going to leave. Look, it's going to be fine.
I'm not finished.
It's going to be good. We're going to leave it up to the states.
But that is his attitude. He has said that. He said that about the guidelines for trans students, or he has supported the HB2 law in North Carolina that forbids non-discrimination laws that include sexual orientation and gender identity and that force trans people to use bathrooms according to their birth sex rather than their lived gender identity. Right. The malfeasance by the mainstream media in not knowing these issues are out there and that they are crucial to people's lives and require asking him. They don't even ask him how he feels about the Equality Act, which every Democrat has promised to support.
And some Republicans.
Exactly. So there is a long list of things that he, you know, is his Justice Department going to go argue on behalf of Gavin Grimm at the Supreme Court? No. Is he going to continue to support religious freedom laws that are, he says he's fine with marriage equality, but he's going to support all these religious freedom laws that are going to undercut that and make same-sex married couples second-class citizens.
The main one being the First Amendment what act?
Defense Act.
The First Amendment Defense Act is running through the Congress now. And it wants to give anybody who has a religious excuse the right to discriminate not just against gay people, but anybody. If you're sincerely religious, you can do what you want.
And if he gets enough Supreme Court appointees, he could overturn not only marriage, but also the Lawrence decision that legalized homosexuality and the Romer decision that said you can't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation in political decisions.
Yes, I mean, Texas is about to, once again introduce a law to invalidate all gay rights laws throughout the state.
Yes, they have a long list on their agenda.
And we've been able to fight some of this off before.
Well,
but there's a steamroller going through this country right now, folks.
And one of the ways we've been able to fight it off is in the courts. And he now has carte blanche to totally transform the lower courts with appointments.
Yes, well, it takes a little time.
Yeah,
and for a while, for a while in some districts. And look, and don't forget the first justice that he gets to replace, and God knows who it's going to be, is Scalia. And they're even interviewing Ted Cruz for that. Well, you said that's impossible.
Ted Cruz is not going to get it. But so what? Someone just as bad is going to get it.
That's right. Well, I mean, past Republican presidents occasionally made mistakes when they made appointments.
Yeah, and they're well aware of that.
Like David Souter appointing under George Bush Sr. Turned out to be a mistake. And you know what? David Souter was a conservative. He just wanted to uphold the Constitution of the United States. But these people want to turn this into a theocracy.
Well, because their definition of upholding the Constitution is, in fact, unconstitutional. And what's he going to do with open service by gay people, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgender people in the U.S. military. All that could be taken away.
Well, that would have to be done by law, wouldn't it?
Well,
I mean, not the
have
transgender.
have you seen the U.S. Congress?
Yes. Well, I mean, you'd have to think that a few Republicans would stand up on some of those things.
I would like to think we would survive all of this, and it would all be fine.
No. We're not going to survive most of it. You know, people say, people were posting on Facebook, oh, you know, I survived Reagan, I survived Bush.
Nixon.
You may have, but many, under Ronald Reagan, HIV got out of control, 35 million dead worldwide, 35 million more with HIV. Well, a lot of people did not, millions and millions of people didn't survive that. Millions and millions of people didn't survive George Bush with his preemptive wars in the Middle East that have totally dislocated the region and left all these refugees and people dead. So lots of people don't survive presidencies.
And just as a reminder, we will show you, I think for the third time on this show, who Pence surrounds himself with. The logical, wonderful Governor Pence of Indiana. This is the crowd that was with him when he signed the Religious Freedom Bill in Indiana. It was an entire religious panoply of right-wing conservatives who were just thrilled to be given permission to discriminate against anyone they wanted in any venue they wanted.
It looks like something out of a Woody Allen movie.
Well, I don't want to go that far, but I just want to show where his priorities are. And a lot of the people in that picture are actually not religious officials. They are officials of right-wing conservative organizations.
Family Research Council. Family Research Council is the, you can take the picture down, but Family Research Council is the group that vetted his list of Supreme Court nominees that he released to the 20 people that he would pick from.
The Family Research Council, the Heritage Foundation, and the American Enterprise Institute are the main players picking running the transition and picking the people who are going to populate all these agencies.
We're going to continue to tell you how terrible everything is, if you can stand it, but we also, let's just slip in that there is resistance. It was wonderful to be among 15,000 people in New York protesting, a tremendously diverse group of people, really good people. And there's going to be a meeting this Sunday in New York.
Yeah.
We're calling ourselves the American Majority. It's going to be at the LGBT Center, but it's for not just for LGBT people. It's at 6 o'clock at the LGBT Center in New York at 208 West 13th Street. It's at 6 o'clock. Come by to that. It's being run by Corey Johnson and others, who is a out-gay city council member. But we have to talk about how to rebuild and fight back. We didn't lose by that much, but we lost everything.
We had a few small victories, and I want to, now that we've loaded all this on you, I want to give you a few points of light. Do you remember the gay guy who worked for Romney who got driven away from him as an advisor in about 2 weeks because the right wing went after him so much? Richard Grinnell.
Yes.
He's a leading candidate to be nominated as UN ambassador.
Really?
Yes.
How is politics?
Well,
besides
better
liking
than
men.
Trump's.
Yes?
Yeah, I think he's considered a grown-up. That's all we want now. Grown-ups. We'll settle for grown-ups.
Well, what other points of light?
Peter Thiel may...
Horrible. Peter Thiel, was the guy who started PayPal, and he was the only gay who spoke at the convention. But he's the guy who said things started going wrong in this country when women got the right to vote.
Well, PayPal and Salesforce convened a meeting this week of 100 tech leaders in San Francisco to strategize about fighting against the anti-LGBT state bills that are being proposed.
And that works on state bills because tech companies saying we're not going to come to your state if you pass these kind of legislation. Are they going to move from the United States when we become a fully anti-LGBT country?
Well, PayPal pulled out of North Carolina, remember, when they passed HB 2.
I'm talking about the country. And,
I hear you.
This First Amendment Act that they want to pass,
that
would kind of override all state and local LGBT rights laws and give religious people the right to discriminate against us again. It certainly
would be a question, and then it'd be litigated, and then the heinous new Supreme Court would rule against us.
Right.
All right. Other small points of light. The Iowa judges who
Yes.
upheld marriage rights in Iowa years ago were retained. They
How
won
about
their
that?
election.
In a state that Trump won.
We still have Roy Cooper holding a slight edge in the North Carolina governor's race. We're holding on for that.
Even though we didn't pick up any seats in the legislature, any significant seats.
We celebrate the losses of Mark Kirk and Scott Garrett.
Yes.
All the LGBT incumbents in the House were reelected, but none of the new candidates won. There were 10 trying to get into the House and 2 into the Senate. They all lost. Oregon out bisexual Governor Katie Brown got elected. There's a new out gay legislator in Florida, Carlos Guillermo Smith. Daniel Hernandez in Arizona got elected to the legislature.
Well,
the guy who
we have him down on the
saved-
list, but did you do Cecil?
Not
Brockman?
yet. Not
Cecil
yet.
Brockman came out as a North Carolina legislator who came out, if we can possibly find him there, who came out, an African-American guy who came out as bisexual.
He was
during-
reelected. He was an incumbent.
Yes, there he is, and made a big statement about it.
The Victory Fund endorsed 135 candidates this year. 87 of them got elected. You can go to victoryfund.org for the full list. There are new out gay, out LGBT legislators in Georgia, Colorado, Minnesota, Washington. The new district attorney of Harris County, Texas, which is Houston, is an out lesbian, Kim Ogg. Even though Houston defeated the trans
LGBT rights
bill. And she won basically because the incumbent, a Republican woman, had jailed a rape victim to get her to testify because she was mentally disturbed and they were afraid she would
So there is
not be
some
available.
discernment out there still, a little bit among the electorate. Some things they don't like.
And I'm not sure where they got, but go to victoryfund.org for the complete list. It's not a terrible list. Chuck Schumer has added Tammy Baldwin, out lesbian senator, to the Senate leadership team. And that's a nice step up for Tammy.
Look, Chuck Schumer is the new minority leader of the United States Senate. He will take over from Harry Reid. He has been our senator for a long time. He hardly had any opposition this year when he ran for re-election. But he is a tool of Wall Street. He has been very slow on LGBT issues. He voted for the Defense of Marriage Act in 1996 as a member of the House, and he didn't come out for same-sex marriage until 2009 in New York. So, I mean, he's putting himself up as a leader now. He wrote a column for The Advocate, and he said, "I was the first politician to march in the Pride Parade." That is a bald-faced lie. So now, I mean, we need you, Chuck, and we would like you to show some leadership, but you're going to have to be a lot tougher than that.
Oh, well, I like it when politicians think they have to act like they support us.
I like it when their statements are clear about how hard they're going to fight and what they're willing to do to stop things.
You know, a lot of this meeting on Sunday is going to be about how do we hold the Democrats' feet to the fire to make sure that they filibuster bad stuff.
Folks, you know, we use the word, I mean, Joan Gibbs used it on our show last week. We use the word advisedly. This is a fascist takeover of the United States of America. This is what we are in right now, and it is very serious. And U.S. politicians are not saying that. Chuck Schumer, anybody, Elizabeth Warren,
No, they're
none
saying
of them.
give him a chance.
Give him a chance, and we're, Bill de Blasio, the great liberal leader, comes out of the meeting today with President-elect Trump. We had a very good meeting. It was very good, blah, 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 blah. That's not the same thing as what's happening in Ireland, and we want to show you what an Irish senator said on the floor of the Senate in Ireland, not just in relationship to Trump, but in relationship to something that is sweeping the world right now in terms of fascism. I mean, I know a lot of people who lived through this before.
And complaining about his leader and all of our leaders who are standing up and saying, well, maybe it'll be okay.
This is 3 minutes. I think it's worth us all listening to.
Edmund Burke once said that the only way evil can prosper is for good men to do nothing. America has just elected a fascist. And the best thing that good people in Ireland can do is to ring him up and ask him if it's okay to still bring the shamrock on St. Patrick's Day. I'm embarrassed by the reaction of the Irish government to what's happened in America. I can't believe the reaction from Taoiseach and from the government. And I don't use the word fascist lightly. What else would you call somebody who threatens to imprison his political opponents? What else would you call somebody who threatens to not allow people of a certain religious faith into their country? What would you say, or how would you describe somebody who is threatening to deport 10 million people? What would you say about somebody who says that the media is rigged, judiciary is rigged, the political system is rigged, and then he wins an election, and the best we can come out with is a phone call to say, is it still okay to bring the shamrock? I'm appalled that a member of this House, a female member of this House, went on social media to congratulate this man. Can I just refer this House and Cahirlock and the Leader of the House to the statement from Angela Merkel? Germany and America are connected by values of democracy, freedom and respect for the law and dignity of man, independent of origin, skin colour, religion, gender, sexual orientation or political views. I offer the next President of the United States close cooperation on the basis of these values. Can the government not understand what's happening? We are at an ugly international crossroads. What's happening in Britain is appalling. What's happening across Europe is appalling. It has echoes from the 1930s, and America, the most powerful country in the world, has just elected a fascist. And the best we can come out with from government spokesperson is, well, we have to talk about foreign direct investment. We have to be conscious of American investments in Ireland. There are 50,000 Irish people illegal in America who I'm quite sure are fearful of their futures. When are we going to have the moral courage to speak in terms other than economy all the time and to realise what is happening? And if the Taoiseach of this country cannot stand as an Irishman at the crossroads of this ugly venture that the international political system is facing into and call it for what it is, then we are doing nothing. I am frightened. I am absolutely frightened for what's happening to this world and what's happening to our inability to stand up against it. I want to congratulate Colin Eastwood from the SDLP, who has said that he won't participate in the charade in St. Patrick's Day. A clear challenge to other political leaders in this country who may be more interested in their fundraising capacity in America so as not to insult potential American dollars that could come into their political coffers here in Ireland. I want to ask you, Leader, to ask the Minister for Foreign Affairs into this House and to ask him how we are supposed to deal with this monster who's just been elected President of America, because I don't think any of us in years to come should look back at this period and not say that we did everything in our power to call out for what it is.
His name is Aidan O'Riordan, and damn it, I want to hear that from Democratic politicians or other people resisting. We have to speak clearly about this, or we are going to get run over.
Does it give you any hope that people are calling out Bannon?
Yes, calling him out, yes. Although, in some ways, I like the idea that Steve Bannon is right there in the White House, a white supremacist, right there, showing every day what this administration is about.
Well, it's going to be a wild ride.
I mean, let's go through some of the other things. I mean, you want to go right? You want to show the other resistance?
Sure, let's show. There's a group called
Anonymous Queers.
Three Anonymous Queers. three Anonymous
That's all
Queers.
it takes.
And I'm guessing we know them, but they haven't told me who they are. They hung this U.S. flag upside down from the Manhattan Bridge in New York.
That's a distress signal.
Yeah, and it stayed up for half an hour before it was taken down.
That's the kind of thing Chuck Schumer used to always complain about when they did it on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Well, congratulations to Three Anonymous Queers for doing that.
Yes.
Let's see what else. Don't we have other protest?
Well, I want to go into that, but we haven't finished with the administration and the people that they're appointing. And we showed you the picture of Pence, but let's review it. Mike Pence is one of the most anti-gay politicians in the United States of America. from what he did in Indiana. He believes in conversion therapy. He believes in limiting, our rights based on religious, quote-unquote, religious freedom. And he was unable to explain himself. He did such a bad job of defending that thing that he was finished in Indiana. He was not going to get reelected as governor of Indiana, and now he's the vice president of the United States, waiting to take over when this 70-year-old guy with a paunch keels over and he becomes president.
At the height of the AIDS crisis, he was in the House of Representatives, and he wanted to deny funding for treatment or a cure until we punished gay men for having sex.
You mentioned Steve Bannon. He's made specific attacks against gays and lesbians, not just with people writing on Breitbart, but his personal thing about, feminists are frustrated dykes, basically.
Well, he said feminists don't like the right-wing prominent women like Michelle Bachmann or Sarah Palin because they're not dykes from Seven Sisters schools in New England.
And of course, and he again has made many personal anti-Semitic statements.
But the guy behind the scenes who is doing all domestic policy transition team work is Ken Blackwell,
yes,
who was the Secretary of State in Ohio,
yes,
and is one of the most virulently anti-LGBT politicians ever, and a big actor in voter suppression.
Yes. See, we used to be in a place in this country when you brought things up about people like this, that they were then unacceptable for public appointments and you could stop them. And some of them will have to be, like cabinet secretaries and judges, will have to be confirmed by the Senate. And senators can, from our side, and Republicans can raise these things and at least embarrass them about it. But it looks like they're all going to go through. I mean, the guy handling the transition for the Environmental Protection Association calls... Agency calls climate change
administration.
Silly.
Environmental Protection Administration.
Calls climate change silly.
Well, so I think Giuliani is a perfect case because here he is considered one of the top two guys to deserve to pick his own job. There is now a wave of objection to him as completely unqualified to run the State Department, which he says he wants, and with an arm length of conflict of interest. Will he survive that?
For Secretary of State.
Yeah.
But he could go back to Attorney General. Frank Gaffney is advising the transition on foreign policy. He is an anti-Muslim nutcase. I mean, talk radio guy who
conspiracy theorist,
who believes Obama is Muslim, who believes the Oklahoma City bombing was perpetrated by Saddam Hussein. Now, all this stuff is so far beyond the pale, and it's so much, and it's happening. It's too much to write. It's just, people are not.
Bolton.
Give him a chance. Give him a chance.
Bolton.
You don't give somebody a chance who says what they're going to do. You stop them.
Bolton was turned down for a job in the Bush administration because he was so right-wing.
Let's look at the people being considered for Attorney General of the United States. That means running the Justice Department, or as it will be known in the Trump administration as Just Us, because they're looking at Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions is a senator from Alabama. He got elected to that after he had served in the Justice Department and been exposed as a bigot when he was nominated by Ronald Reagan to be a federal judge. He wasn't confirmed because he had done so many racially insensitive things. He thought the KKK was okay until I found out they smoked pot. He said ACLU is un-American and communist-inspired. NAACP forces civil rights down the throats of people. This is the way the guy talks. He once wished, when he served in the Justice Department, I wish I could just dump all these civil rights cases and not have to look at them. They want him for that, and they also want Chris Kobach, who was the Kansas Secretary of State. He's very hardline anti-immigration.
Been working with Sam Brownback.
He accused the Human Rights Campaign of promoting homosexual pedophilia.
Oh,
and then they're looking at Ted Cruz.
But, give him a chance.
Oh, but let's give some credit to Ben Carson, who said,
our new hero.
I don't want to be Secretary of Education. I don't know anything about it.
I'm unqualified. I've never run a major agency. I did want to be president, but I'm not qualified to run an agency.
I mean, this is all about rolling the clock back, and the new
rolling the clock back. Ed Meese has reared his head and is involved.
But you know, the Pew Research did a poll that said, here's the question they asked: for people like you, have things gotten better or worse compared to 50 years ago? 19% of Clinton voters said things have gotten worse, 59% better. Trump voters said 81% that things have gotten worse, 11% better. There was no gender gap on that question. There was a big racial gap, of course, but that's what's happening in this country. These people want to go back to the time when women were in their place, black people were in their place, gay people, etc.
I am shocked by the number of people I see quoted these days after the election who admit that they voted for Trump because they wanted white people running things.
They said that?
They said it out loud. I've seen it several times in print and on TV.
Wow.
And
you know, look, we have a very now, you know, because Hillary won the popular vote by over 1 million votes at least, and he won a narrow electoral victory, a couple of 100,000 votes in a couple of states. The whole thing changes for her anyway, for Hillary. But it's not just the Electoral College, which is you know, a disaster, and is not going to be changed unless we go for this fair vote thing. And then I don't want to get into explaining right now. There is a way to work around it. But the Senate of the United States, you know, I mean, 2 senators from every state, 2 for California, 2 for Little Rhode Island.
And that's what the Electoral College is, too.
Exactly. We don't have representative government. We don't have much of a democracy.
All right. But the LGBT vote, as they've been able to assess it, went Hillary 78%, Trump 14%.
Yes.
But there were gays for Trump. We have the billboards to prove it. If we can put that up, in fact, our viewer Peter Boykin is the one who put up these billboards. He's a strong Trump supporter.
But where's the evidence? Where's his evidence that Trump is going to defend LGBT rights beyond not having us thrown off buildings by ISIS?
Well, that's what he concentrates on. He's concerned about terrorism, and that's his.
We're all concerned about terrorism.
His reason for supporting Trump.
Put up the picture, if you will, of Edie Windsor and Jim Obergefell. They were there at the
dedication of the
Aspire Center at the Callan Lord Community Health Center. But I talked to Jim Obergefell at this, you know, and said, "Aren't you worried about what's coming up with Trump?" He says, "Well, my lawyers tell me that it's very hard to take rights away once you've granted them." And I hate to tell you and everybody else, it's very easy to do when you have the votes and you have the Supreme Court. Now, Art Leonard, our friend Art Leonard, Legal, you know, wrote a column saying, "Oh, that's going to take a long time, and you have to show harm, and then we're introducing the case." Now, you know, anything like that is an excuse not to do anything right now, to sound the red alarm and get active now. And that's why we're out in the streets. You think we want to be doing this at our age? You know, we're doing it. And I saw couples in their 80s out there, and I saw little children out there, and we'll show you one at the end.
Thank God the weather's okay.
Well,
look, what gives me heart is not only, you know, I'm old, I'm happy to see the old people out there, but the kids who are walking out of schools and demonstrating, and who are so upset. You know, kindergartners who are upset.
Yes.
Now, some of them are brainwashed by their parents, but on both sides. But I am heartened that younger people, I hope they all voted. Those who can, but I want them to get active and make a change.
How are we going to handle the holidays? I am scheduled to see my family in Rhode Island this weekend, I mean, for our Thanksgiving, but we have a no politics rule. It's the only way I can get through things. I think when Bush was elected, I just called up and said, I can't. I just can't face anybody who might have voted for him.
I don't want to talk. I have a very hard time imagining talking to the 1 or 2 actual friends I have who voted for Trump. I know they voted for Trump, and I have to take a hiatus.
Right.
Luckily, the family members who voted for Trump for various reasons are not coming to Thanksgiving, so I get off easy on that one. I want to alert you.
I will walk out on dinner if anybody starts in. I won't start in, you don't start in. That should be the rule.
It's Thanksgiving.
Don't do it.
Yeah. One thing.
Maybe they'll feel free to castigate me as a
One
homosexual
thing
now.
to pay attention to: Louisiana still has a Senate race.
Yes, and it would. And it
December 10th. The Republican is favored, but the Democrat is not far behind. Foster Campbell. And that would make a difference in the United States Senate if
bring us up to 49.
Well, every vote counts.
Absolutely. And then all you got to do is,
December 10th, Louisiana
some
Senate.
Republican dies in a state with a Democratic governor. There are a handful of those left right now. I mean, so that's the other thing, folks. We have been letting this go for 20 years and letting them run over us while they take over, and they expect to even do better in 2020 in terms of more governors,
they're going to
more
do better
state
in
legislatures.
2018.
They're
going to take more Senate seats in 2018.
Unless people wake up. Unless, I want to focus now. As I say, I don't want to talk to Trump supporters. I want to talk to the 47% of the American people who did not vote. And the Democratic Party has to give them something to vote for, or it's not going to be turned around. That's why I'm disappointed in people who aren't such great leaders as Chuck Schumer.
Can we go to some of the bad things that are happening to people around the country? For instance, in Cookeville, Tennessee, where a trans woman and her 3-year-old son had their truck burned and painted with the word Trump. Those kinds of attacks are taking place around the country.
There was a pro-LGBT Episcopal church in Indiana, and we're going to show you the vandalism there that took place there, the kinds of things that were written on the side of the church. This isn't a gay church. This is just a pro-gay church in Brown County, Indiana. It says fag church. It says Heil Trump and a swastika. And you know what they said they were going to do? We're going to leave this up for a while so we can have discussions about it. People can just face up to what's going on.
You've seen the footage of the high school students marching through the halls with a Trump-Pence sign chanting white power. You've seen this kind of swastika graffiti all over people's houses and businesses.
It seems to have happened in Germany in the 1930s.
I have been watching the History Channel and watching World War II documentaries to try to see how that took place.
These were human beings. These were our ancestors. These are people like us who, once they get whipped up, what's happened is Trump has validated a lot of bigotry, and people now feel free to say it and get it out, and they are loving it. They feel like they've been suppressed by us, all this political correctness stuff. And now I can say it because we won.
Yeah.
We can say it, and all politeness is off. I realize it was always there under the surface, but now it's out in the open, and it's ugly.
Once again, we too believe that the system is rotten.
Yes.
And are very happy to have the system disrupted, but not this way.
No. I was very encouraged to see that they're looking at Keith Ellison as the head of the Democratic National Committee, one of the out Muslim members of Congress. He's a congressman from Minnesota. I know him. You spent some time with him, and he's very progressive.
He's not even a Democrat, is he?
Keith Ellison?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what, Democratic Farmer Labor Party or something?
I don't know.
Is that what you mean? And they have that special party in Minnesota.
Yes, they
Our
do.
viewers will correct us.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a Democrat.
Yeah, he is. What am I thinking of that he's not? I can't remember. Anyway.
Well, he's not Middle Eastern. He's an African-American.
In California, the Contra Costa Rainbow Community Center has had 4 break-ins in the last couple of weeks. Anti-gay slurs written on the center, theft of computers and stuff inside.
In Charlotte, North Carolina, 3 people accused of brutally attacking a transgender woman with a hatchet have been arrested. This woman, Ralasia, a 24-year-old victim, said, "I felt like I was dying slowly." It was an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old who chased her around and did this. And the numbers of hate, and then there was one in New York. A 23-year-old man on a Bronx-bound D train was slashed by a 39-year-old man shouting anti-gay slurs, and they apprehended the guy. This is the 5th public anti-LGBTQ incident in New York City. In New York City. 79% for Hillary, 18% for Trump.
A 21-year-old man and his friend attacked in Hell's Kitchen by 3 men. They were arguing. The gay guys walked by them, And the arguing guys attacked the gay guys, saying, "What are you looking at, faggot?"
No, I mean, I know.
Broken wrist, one of them ended up
I know
with.
people this happened to in Britain after the Brexit vote as well, and they said it had never happened before. And that's what that Irish senator was talking about. This is something that has been unleashed on the world. And folks, we better discover our common ground. And right now we don't have much, you know.
Now, at the same time, you know, all these incidents are real. This hatred is real. It is bursting out at the moment. But for the most part, people continue to live their daily lives, and that they do, and that's why half of them didn't vote. That's why there is complacency. That is why people are excusing themselves from doing anything, because they sort of think, oh, I don't want to get involved. I'm just going to let this play out.
I understand the impulse. But,
yeah.
you know, eventually you will find out, you know, that there will be, I mean, again,
and then will it be too late?
All that has to happen in this country, I mean, again, we don't use the word fascism lightly, but suppose there is a major terrorist attack, and there'll be some kind of terrorist attack, of course. That's when they declare martial law. That's when civil liberty, you know.
All right, well, here are some bad things that are happening even under the end of the Obama administration. The Veterans Administration has just withdrawn a proposal to pay for gender reassignment surgery, saying they don't have enough money.
We're waiting for the resolution of the Gavin Grimm case.
We don't have enough money, they said. And the Pentagon has announced that same-sex couples who are civilian employees must marry by the end of this year to keep getting benefits. No more domestic partner benefits.
That is something that has been done by many private organizations.
Yeah, well, the state
governments.
The State Department,
not New York City.
The State Department is instituting the same rule, but is giving people until 2018 to marry.
Right.
The Pentagon has just announced you have 2 months to do this, less than 2 months.
Here's another ray of light.
Those serving overseas are exempt until 2018, because if you're serving in, you know, Iraq, you may not want to marry your same-sex partner.
But in Dallas, the Wilshire Baptist Church has voted to grant gays and lesbians full membership in the church, and that means everything, same-sex marriage and everything. This is a Baptist church. It passed by a 61% majority, but immediately they and another church may be expelled from the Baptist Convention for this, and that also includes the First Baptist Church in Austin.
There are very progressive Baptist churches,
Yes.
including Metro Baptist here in New York.
Including Judson Memorial Church, which used to guide women to abortions. It was part of the American Baptist Church, not the Southern Baptist Church.
And West Palm Beach, Florida, and Seattle, Washington have both just banned conversion therapy for minors.
And Ellen DeGeneres is going to get a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Read over the whole list of who's getting it. It's a wonderful group. None of them are ever going to be invited back to the White House ever again.
In Minnesota, a court has overturned the ban on the state medical assistance program covering gender reassignment surgery. The feds pay for it under Medicaid, but the state of Minnesota was not paying for it, but the court says, nope, you have to. And Chelsea Manning has formally asked the current administration to commute her sentence to time served in solitary confinement in Fort Leavenworth.
Torture.
Horribly tortured.
Two attempted suicides, for which she gets punished each time.
Yes. And she has served more time and drawn a much longer sentence than anyone else similarly situated for revealing government confidential information.
Okay, we did the Defense Authorization Act.
A trans woman in Richmond, Virginia was murdered. Noonie Norwood, 30 years old, shot dead. She was the 23rd or 24th trans woman killed this year in this country.
There's been a tremendous increase in suicide hotline calls for LGBT communities. The trans hotline has received 5 times the usual number of calls. Trevor Project, which counsels LGBT youth over the phone against suicide, more than double the number of calls just on last Wednesday. It hasn't slowed down.
A trans woman in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, fought back. 22 years old, Claire Wolfever, I think we have a picture of her. She had been slurred and threatened by her coworker at Walmart. She filed a complaint, which wasn't being acted on. She stole her grandfather's gun and went and shot the harasser 4 times. He's alive and doing okay. She went out to the parking lot and waited for the cops to come arrest her.
And in the midst of all this,
we don't approve of that.
In the midst of
revenge.
Absolutely one of the worst years we've ever lived through, the people of the LGBT community in Orlando had their Pride celebration. Look, there's the cover of the Orlando Sentinel. Wow, what a thing. And this was in the wake of the election, in the wake of the Pulse Massacre, all that
weekend
stuff.
right after.
Biggest ever. Biggest ever Pride celebration in Orlando. Congratulations to the community there. Keep fighting, keep out there.
Yeah, thank you for your efforts. And speaking of parades, one of the 3 grand marshals for the Rose Parade coming up in Pasadena the first of the year will be Greg Louganis. Right. First out gay, first HIV positive, obviously Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade.
All right.
In Texas, the Association of Businesses, which is the Chamber of Commerce there, has announced that if the state passes the anti-LGBT laws proposed by Attorney General Ken Paxton, the state will lose 105,000 jobs and $8.5 billion if these laws are passed. This is what's going to happen when the right wing sweeps through the country passing all this stuff. It's going to be a job killer, an economic depressor. They're not going to rebuild business and people's lives. I mean, tax cuts for the rich, that's it.
Well, and the stock market is celebrating. And
tax cuts for the rich.
Because there's going to be no regulation on business and fossil fuel industries and all this kind of stuff. They're off to the races.
And it's not just...
You're not going to get much.
It's not just Texas. In Florida, with Governor Rick Scott, there is a proposal for a statewide religious and moral freedom for businesses. You don't even have to assert a religious reason for discrimination. You can just say you have a moral objection to gay people or people of color or Muslims or whatever, and you get to discriminate.
I mean, the big thing, and I wrote down the comments of a lot of people on this, mostly from Facebook, but but we can't normalize this situation. We have to keep objecting to it. Paul Rudnick wrote that appointing Pence and Blackwell isn't a matter of political balance. He says hatred should never be considered a mere difference of opinion where we can all agree to disagree. You can't do that. John Oliver was great on his show. He said things will not be okay. Oh yeah, the sun's going to rise. That's a hell of a standard. That's what Obama said the next day. Obama's certainly not being very strong in this.
The sun rose after the Pulse massacre too.
He says this
is the Syrian bombings.
He says this is not normal. Write it on a Post-it note and stick it on your refrigerator. Hire a skywriter once a month, tattoo it on your ass because a Klan-backed misogynist internet troll is going to be delivering the next State of the Union address, and that is not normal. It is effed up. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Solomon said, let us fight the diminishing sense of horror that we have, and fight the forces that normalize autocracy and bigotry. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was also going to get a Presidential Medal of Freedom, said, we can't do this later. We have to do this right now. And he wants to focus on the elections right now.
Look, for all those who say take a wait and see attitude, give them a chance, the protests that are taking place right now have already helped us reveal and fight back against the bigotry of those who are taking over. They have been very effective in spite of everybody saying, oh, why are you doing that?
I love what Stan Van Gundy said. He's the Detroit Pistons head coach. He's a white man, obviously works with a lot of African Americans, and he blasted this in a 6-minute rant at his press conference. I don't think anybody can deny this guy is openly and brazenly racist and misogynist and ethnic-centric. I am ashamed of the United States for electing him. This is the kind of tone we have to take about this now and forever until they back up.
Remember what trouble the Dixie Chicks got into for being ashamed of the U.S. for Bush invading Iraq?
Wanda Sykes put it all out there in her routine, and people started booing her, and she just said, F you, and walked off the stage.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to stand up.
All right.
Outright International is obviously very concerned about what's going to happen
immigrants.
to not just immigrants, but to people. The stand of the United States for LGBT rights worldwide.
Yeah.
We now have a special envoy for LGBTQ rights. Who's it going to be now? Peter Thiel?
You're fired. All right, can we move on?
Yes.
We have less
No, we can't move on.
We have 8 minutes.
All right. A ray of light from Uganda. The court removed the barrier allowing the commission there to ignore LGBTQ discrimination. But this is the same week that the Ugandan police are using invasive, painful probes to prove people are homosexual.
Thank you for taking us into international news. In Peru, the Constitutional Court has okayed people being able to designate their gender identity in which they currently live.
But the Mexican parliament, or legislature, rejected the president's equality initiative 19-8 with one abstention on same-sex marriage.
But it's proceeding in the courts anyway. There are some who thought it should never have gone into the parliament. And a Mexican legislator came out in the middle of the debate. In Taiwan, they've taken the first step to moving forward same-sex marriage legislation. Canada is also going to allow people to designate other as their gender on travel forms.
And there are 2 big class action suits in Canada seeking at least $600 million in compensation for LGBT Canadians pushed out of the military.
In Australia, the Senate has finally killed the proposed plebiscite on same-sex marriage. Now we'll see whether we can force it through the parliament or have to wait for a change of government. The Vatican has rebuked the priest who said the earthquakes were because they legalized civil unions.
Yeah,
the Vatican said that was a pagan vision, offensive and disgraceful.
I'm glad you think something's disgraceful.
Look in the mirror.
Why don't you stop condemning us for making love? How about that?
Queensland, Australia has broadened adoption rights for same-sex couples. They're mostly legal elsewhere in Australia, but Queensland has joined on. In Morocco, teenage girls were arrested for kissing on a rooftop, could be jailed for 6 months to 3 years.
All right.
In Russia, a trans woman was murdered days after marrying a man. Her father called for her death. I don't know if we can get that? There she is.
Her father called for her death.
Dead. And in Indonesia, the state university president will force LGBT students to change to heterosexuality. He will provide undercover investigators, re-education classes, and scholarships will be revoked if you refuse.
In AIDS news.
Indonesia, the new United States.
In AIDS news, they're going to dedicate the AIDS Memorial in Greenwich Village across from what used to be the St. Vincent's Hospital on AIDS Day, World AIDS Day, December 1st at 11 a.m. That's
7th Avenue and 12th Street.
Yeah.
In the election, California defeated the 2 relevant proposals, mandatory condoms in porn movies and drug price controls. Both were extremely controversial.
And do you know what XQ28AN8Q12 is?
No.
Well, these are 2 genetic regions which seem to correlate with homosexuality in men. Simon LeVay is very pleased with the results.
Oh, please.
It's all about saying that there's some innateness to which we've always said anyway.
4.5 minutes. Do you want to do your play reviews?
Yes. I did see a play called Homos, or Everyone in America, with Michael Urie from Ugly Betty and Robin DeJesus, a great Broadway star, as a gay couple in and out of love in the small Bank Street Theater. So you're right in the room with them. It's by Jordan Seavey, who's got a great ear for what brings guys together and drives them apart. And there's a lot of politics in this show as well. It's good.
Yeah, it's somewhat sophisticated, I've heard.
Absolutely,
yes? Okay.
Absolutely.
Alert, Moonlight, the movie we love so much, and who's the writer of the story we had here, Terrell McRaney, opens wide this weekend across the nation. Moonlight.
Moonlight.
Beautiful poetic movie.
You and I saw Falsettos by William Finn. Lots of raves for this. I was left longing for my original experience with this with the show. I found it a bit dated this time, but it's hard not to leave unaffected by it.
I love the second act. I thought that was very, very smart and moving, and I'm glad I stayed.
And I like Christian Borle and Andrew Reynolds as the couple, and mostly the kid, Anthony Rosenthal. I saw Dead Poets Society, a stage version by the guy who wrote the movie, but this time with Jason Sudeikis at the Classic Stage Company. It was the Robin Williams movie. Stick with the movie.
On the last episode of Masters of Sex, they are now getting into the controversy over conversion therapy, and they're blaming Virginia Johnson for pushing conversion therapy to get a book published.
And Bill said he went to a Pet Shop Boys, right, concert, and it was good to be among friends, and that's what I recommend to all of us. Be with friends, be with people, be out with people who can support you. It's really very, very important for us to take care of each other. I wouldn't have gone to the hospital for chest pains if my friends hadn't insisted on it. I was going to say,
we're just tired of hearing you complain.
It'll go. Well, I mean,
please go somewhere, do something about it.
Okay, I did. I'm all right.
I witnessed the series running on USA on Sunday nights with the two teen boys who were secretly in love and witnessed a murder.
Yeah, I saw some of it.
Yeah, well, the good guy came out to his step-parents or adoptive parents. Oh, they're totally accepting. But now the really scared boy's father is beginning to catch on that maybe he's been spending too much time with the other guy. So it's going back and forth, but there's a lot of gay content, and it's really done nicely.
And then the kid said, Donald Trump said it's settled.
Well, GLAAD, the former Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, issued their annual report that said there are more LGBT characters on TV, still not enough. But here is the problem. They may be there, but they're not getting enough screen time. The storylines are simplistic and stereotypical. They don't have any impact.
I warned people years ago when we were peaking, and there were so many LGBT characters, that we were flavor of the month.
Yeah.
And then they get tired of that, and they move on to the Trump white America again.
And the stereotype on these shows is they kill off all the women. All the lesbians get killed off. That's the standard plot line now.
Oh, my
25 of them in 2016.
You know, there was a line in The Boys in the Band 100 years ago in the 20th century. Not every faggot bumps himself off at the end of the third act, and now you're still doing that?
But you want to leave them with a message of hope.
I went to that big anti-Trump protest, and this little girl was there with this sign. Take a look at it, I'm not giving up, and neither should you. I took this picture and I put it on Facebook, and somebody said, is that Maggie Gyllenhaal to her right? And you know what? I hadn't even noticed. It is.
In the back, in the blazer.
In the fatigues.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Well, I think that's a Hillary quote. That was from her concession speech.
Well, it's a great quote. None of us should give up.
Well, it's so much more interesting to not give up. It's boring to sit around and do nothing and get depressed.
And just don't kid yourself that things are going to be better. They're not. They're going to get worse.
Well,
but
they'll get
you'll
better.
Feel better if you fight.
Exactly. And make sure your friends are okay and fighting too.
Check in on them.
And we'll be back next week. Oh, with a special show.
Oh, we have a special show. Blanche Wiesen-Cook, author of the new Eleanor Roosevelt biography.
Volume 3 for an hour for Thanksgiving.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.